What I'm doing right now, my shoulder broke, but we still getting to the money. We still counting paper. This ain't a pump and dump, baby.
Rick Ross knew perfectly damn well what he was doing and what that would lead to.
Rick Ross is currently surrounded by mirrors and smoke. He suddenly made a move so sly and crafty that it has the entire hip-hop scene buzzing like a beehive, and you won't believe the chaos he produced. It was Big Meech who was kicked. Yes, that Big Meech, the renowned BNF member, but the streets claim that this is more complicated than just a falling out. This is above and beyond.
I'll buy your masters. You ready? I will buy your masters.
Ross apparently did more than just tame Meech. He allegedly treated him cold and poorly, which is why there are speculations that Meech put a hit out on him. Take a moment to consider that. They're lashing out and losing it on the internet. Everyone is glued to their screens, takes are intense, and memes are going viral. As if this were the season finale of the most strange reality show ever made. But first, let's back up before getting too caught up in the alleged contracts and street fighting. How could Meech have predicted what he was getting into with a former penitentiary officer? It's time to descend completely into this maze of drama, treachery, and blatant contempt.
How do you feel about the rapper Rick Ross having the same name?
Well, the fact that he stole my name, not that we had the same name, he actually stole my whole story, my identity, the whole thing. You know, he built his career off of my legacy.
This is how it is configured. Mr. Get Rich or Die Trying, 50 Cent, has been criticizing Big Meech and Lil Meech on social media for months. Essentially, Rick Ross is putting 50 under the bus. It's more than just a little jab. Complete eclipse-level darkness is in place. When Big Meech was released from prison, he immediately clutched to Rick Ross as if he were a long-lost brother or something, instead of being honest with the man who actually held him down and gave his son a chance. That was the part that really made everyone stop and look. Instead, Meech rode alongside Ross, who has a long-standing animosity with 50, instead of paying tribute to 50, who built an empire and made Lil Meech famous. Now 50 didn't think Meech would wage war on Ross just for him. But come on, he takes pride in his devotion and honesty. So it must have felt like a slap in the face to pose for pictures with Rose, while claiming that Ross has always been on his side. It must have been satisfying to see Meech overshadow Ross. Like a completely new form of treachery. As if the treachery weren't already dark enough, Meech twists that knife. Subsequently, he joins forces with Floyd Mayweather, and Lil Meech parades around, as though he had something to prove to everyone, apparently forgetting who first introduced him. Meanwhile, 50 Cent is out there, preaching about commitment, strength, and business. Would you say that to the man who has given your son a complete career and a $5 million boost?
I feel bad for Lil Meech. I don't feel bad for no grown man in this planet. Like, I'm a grown man. Why the fuck I gotta feel bad for another grown man? You a grown man too, and you asking for my sympathy for it. You be alright. Oh, whatever.
At least he turned Big Meech's nickname into a respectable business, although some people are quick to point out that 50 made a lot of money off of it. He left a legacy, gave Lil Meech a platform, and founded the BMF series. However, Rick Ross treated Big Meech like a pawn on a warped chessboard instead. Ross knew this situation was going to explode into a major drama, but instead of trying to quell it, he fought for attention by leaning straight into the flames and pumped his pride like a well-trained professional. Ross then made the ultimate disappearance as the situation got too much to handle. Everyone was starting to realize what was happening when he came out here talking about a shoulder problem. A shoulder injury. That's the escape plan, actually. By posting pictures of victims, he naturally made sure the entire internet knew about the crime in the hopes that people would buy it. However, this is where it gets even more twisted. In addition to being a flimsy excuse to dodge the Ross, was actually using those supposed injuries as a pretext for something far more severe and complex than Meech's situation. He would prefer not to see his supporters of his boss token ever again after allegedly defrauding them. Token of the boss. Remember how the internet drew him through the mud and gave him a label? Rick Ross totally missled individuals who trusted him with their hard-earned money, which is why this is the case. When he did, let's just say that he fell hard.
Burn it all down. If you piss him off. His own sometimes too. You know, he'll cancel BMF to prove a point. Regardless of how much money he makes.
You cannot ignore the time either. Days after he was apprehended for allegedly lying to Big Meech, Rick Ross supposedly showed up with a broken shoulder. Don't hesitate, the moment is simply too perfect. It yells strategy of escape instead of accident. Ross is also said to have encouraged Meech to ask 50 Cent for more money, according to business sources. Consider how stupid that was of Ross, who is stirring up controversy and profiting off the turmoil. It is impossible to fabricate the story of the man who allegedly whispered poison in Meech's ear. Meech is currently empty and has nothing material to show for all of this turmoil. As if he's carrying some ill luck or terrible energy, which is the exact reason why other artists are avoiding him. Remember those Wingstop franchises that everyone believed Meech would take advantage of? Rick Ross, it turns out, secretly auctioned off most of them. He may have kept up 2 establishments, just enough to make money. The inside dirt about his real estate deals is far more extensive than sneaky. In actuality, Big Meech might have had a real shot to make a resurgence if Ross hadn't gotten involved and thrown things off balance. Instead, he just kept doing things. While attempting to appear as though he was in Gunner's tax bracket, Lil Meech was out there spending millions of dollars on Chrome Hearts jeans. Now, all of the things they helped create with 50 Cent have suddenly disappeared.
Bad guy out of all of this.
Who's the bad guy? I don't think there's a bad guy.
No, yes it is. That Vlad, let's talk about it.
I think Meech is the one that made a mistake.
No,
No? You think 50?
no,
Lil Meech.
no.
Who am I forgetting now?
Rick Ross knew perfectly damn well what he was doing and what that would lead to.
Ross's purported connection with Big Meech ended badly, and the internet community is having a great time mocking him for it. One voice has stood out as being especially loud and clear. Michael Rainey Jr., better known as Tariq from Power, didn't mince words. He said rather plainly that he doesn't feel sorry for either of them because they are both grown-ups who should have been able to see this train accident coming. He has been co-signing everything while simultaneously relaxing in his own little internet niche. Be truthful. When someone betrays 50 Cent, he can be extremely harsh, as everyone knows. DJ Vlad has witnessed it as well. They all concurred that if 50 feels missiled, he will destroy everything to prove his point, making him the worst person to argue with. Rick Ross has left people in remote locations, and Big Meech is not the only one. Ross has a lengthy history of engaging in questionable activity. By abandoning his own team to be jumped in Canada and then coming back to say he was trying their limits, he even betrayed them. It is simply twisted manipulation, not leadership. Even WAC 100 has never prevailed in this clever game that Rick Ross has been playing for a long time. As Mincemeat enters the arena, he accuses being the real enemy in this whole battle between Big Meech and 50. Furthermore, Ross was never truly into Meech. He started by pushing him to rebel against 50 by instilling in him all these grandiose fantasies of accumulating riches and building an empire. In fact, though, it was a well-constructed smoke and mirrors front. Additionally, WAC 100 might have been right on the money since Rick Ross would have kept Meech if he had genuinely wanted to assist him in getting back on his feet. Even if everything was done in secret and behind the scenes, Ross didn't need the attention or the publicity. He was pretending to be very strong by saying that he was purchasing the web rights to the BMF series, but all of it was a lie. All of that never happened, and Ross has now completely left Meech. He doesn't even mention Meech's name. Big Meech is plainly no longer a part of Ross's current agenda, which is limited to whatever makes him money. Now for the part that's made everyone begin to breathe heavily. Although there are rumors that Rick Ross was the real reason Big Meech's welcome home benefit party was cancelled, He skillfully manipulated the narrative so that everyone placed the blame on 50 Cent. Why would Ross carry out such a basic task? Ross did not want Meech stacking real bread from a comeback show. While he appeared to be the helpful friend in Meech's corner in front of the cameras, he wanted Meech to stay in his shadow. Remember when 50 released that enigmatic content and then quickly took it down? "Please stop calling my phone. I had nothing to do with this," I said. "Sincerely hoping you're having a good day. Happy Valentine's Day. You don't know how strong I am." When most people dismissed it as 50 being 50, they avoided accepting responsibility. But now that I think about it, it's starting to make a lot more sense. When Ross rapped, "I think I'm Big Meech," on that BMF song, Big Meech genuinely believed he had his back the entire time. Everyone's brain is spinning at this plot surprise, and I know it's weird. But what if Rick Ross was more than just a fan of Big Meech? Wanted to be Big Meech in the truest sense of the word. As is well known, Ross has based his whole brand on the shoulders of well-known street figures, especially the real OGs who ran the game before him. This is not some absurd conspiracy theory. It is backed up by evidence. The real Rick Ross, a well-known drug dealer, is the model for Ross's rap persona. He fiercely assaulted him and sued him for it when the real Rick Ross was made public. By 2010, the entire legal case had escalated into a full-fledged battle, having started in 2005. Ross created and following the creation of a multi-million-dollar corporation under a name that wasn't even his. Many are starting to seriously wonder if he tried to employ the same strategy with Big Meech. Let us make these connections. The first thing he does is release the BMF song where he raps, "I think I'm Big Meech bold." As soon as Meech gets released from prison, Ross surrounds him like they're best friends from boyhood, acting as though they are there to assist him in getting back on his feet. But when it came time to actually show up and put in the effort to help Meech get better, Rick Ross left him and vanished. Then surprise! It is not a unique incident, it's a trend. The same thing he did in 2021 with Larry Hoover. Ross has a clear tendency to include real-life kingpins in his songs, and to bring them up often to boost his street cred while they are incarcerated and unable to defend themselves or make money off of their identities. Additionally, there are claims that he paid the gangster disciples millions of dollars to maintain Hoover's name in his songs, without suffering any significant repercussions. That's not a tribute, it's a conscious effort to acquire clout, which Ross has turned into a highly profitable business tactic. But when it came time for Rick Ross to advocate for Larry Hoover's cause, show him you care, and do everything in your power to help him escape from prison. Stopped taking part in the movement suddenly. Ross was not criticized for genuinely trying to improve things, but rather for stealing Hoover's music and his past without offering anything tangible in return. Ross has received a lot of backlash on social media for his blatant hypocrisy. People continue to ridicule Larry Hoover at the free benefit event, saying he messed up the whole affair and was too nervous and scared to even reveal his face. At the stadium and now, with a new kingpin, we're seeing the same disaster unfold again. The history is truly remixing now. Thus, it makes sense that 50 Cent has publicly stated that he has never respected Rick Ross as a person and never will. Can you really hold him accountable anyway? Ross is more effective at turning people on than a light switch. And 50 is probably grinning from ear to ear as they watch this whole thing blow up without even having to do anything. Nothing more needs to be proven by him. 50 is occupied as all of this drama explodes and burns tremendously, growing his company, giving up on new projects, and getting richer every day. It appears that Big Meech and Lil Meech are out here jumping from one star to another, allegedly asking for money to keep the lights on. There's complete and total pandemonium. This is the most ironic and ridiculous turn of all. When 50 was struggling to secure a loan to expand his film studio, Rick Ross would constantly call him broke and make fun of him. It was his sincere belief that 50 was over. However, that loan was finally approved a few days ago, which was unexpected. Yes, Ross has to see it firsthand now. when turning 50 turns your most treasured goal into a reality. Ross has to watch from the sidelines, likely enraged by a mixture of jealousy and frustration, as 50 continues to stand tall, continues to grow, and continues to project an air of invincibility. A few weeks ago, Ross was all over social media, boasting about reportedly buying 50 Cent's Masters. Many fans think he is currently hitting the air in rage about the way things have developed. Really, who could blame him? Now that you think about that, it sounds like an absolutely absurd joke. Meanwhile, it seems that Big Meech and Lil Meech have learned a few things. However, let's be grimly honest. Taking Lil Meech back under Big Meech's wing or trying to assist him in recovering from this self-inflicted disaster is definitely too late for 50. Yes, that ship has set sail. The truth has been known since day one thanks to Zip with a leaking clock, who has consistently spoken up and provided insightful analysis throughout the entire story. By 50, he remained firm, claiming to be aware that Big Meech was being used and manipulated. Zip was so certain that Rick Ross would drop Meech as soon as the heat started that he even called it early. Should wake up the moment something even slightly uncomfortable occurs. We are now seeing the actual realization of that prediction in real time. It is now commonly assumed that Big Meech is done with the game because of the internet comments left by supporters. Any possibility he might have had to come back in some meaningful way was gone. You would think that after being incarcerated for so long, Meech would have gained more perspective and possibly a more profound understanding of the issues surrounding false users. But it's almost as if he was more reckless and completely naive than ever. The best way to explain it was by one admirer, slicing straight through the bone, to put it simply. A man who had recently been released from prison was switched on by a former correctional officer. Did anyone not anticipate it, and then someone else plays a deceitful role? All of that is karma. These karmas were served hot too, fresh out of the oven, no postponements or cancellations. Let's be honest though, where do you all stand in this intricate drama? This is a complex topic. Do you think Big Meech is carefully preparing his next move to get even with Rick Ross, or will he just let this massive betrayal happen? You can attribute it to a pricey life lesson. This story gets uglier by the minute, even while he is being criticized for allegedly leaving his childhood friend. Comment below with your thoughts, your most outrageous theories, and your hot takes. We are interested in your thoughts. Additionally, if you're feeling very overwhelmed by the mayhem, remember to use the like button. Click the notification bell to make sure you don't miss the next release, and subscribe for more. Additionally, you can give the tea to someone who needs it. See you at the next event.